And now,
ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
You know, business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Dom Gosher.
How well did that go down?
Talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at PreneurMarketing.com.
Hey mate, how are you?
I'm good.
Good to hear. Is it podcast time?
Can be.
Cool. It is Thursday. I know we're a little premature, but that's how we podcast.
Definitely wear a seat of your pants, definitely.
What are we going to talk about today?
Do you know what? The other week you talked to me about, you mentioned...
I mentioned silence.
Yeah, my brain just went dead. It's been on my mind all week, and just there you go. Look at that. Performance anxiety. Yeah, I'm getting it so bad I can't even say it.
Well, while you think about it, let me tell you about my 24 hours. It's been interesting.
Go for it.
So last night I went to one of the most fascinating presentations I've ever seen in my life, and I can say, hand on heart, that I have been a seminar junkie and a workshop junkie. This was something that I'd never been to before in my life. It was actually put on by the Melbourne Homicide squad, so the police department. This is through Dave Jennings, who I think we've mentioned on the podcast a few times, a good buddy of mine.
Who now I really don't want to meet.
Yes. Basically, he went to this thing last year and was raving about it, and my fiancée, again, which is very strange, has a fascination with crime. She just loves all the, not necessarily not the crime shows like Law and Order, but the crime scene investigation shows, like the shows that actually really talk about real world crime and break it down. And this time last year, we headed up to the Snow for a couple of days with Dave Jennings, his girlfriend, a few other people, and obviously it was about a 6-7 hour car ride to where we had to go, and it was dark at night, and we started talking about random stuff and talking about crime and killing, and Dave shared this story about this night and flirting about her fascination, and we're going down these dark back streets with no lights. And anyway, he was telling me about this thing he went to put on by the Homicide Association, or the Homicide Unit, or whatever it might be, as a fundraiser. They do it once a year, and it's like a closed door kind of session, and they get people from the Homicide Squad up to actually talk about different cases and actually talk about the start of the case all the way through to how they actually found the murderer and put him away, to the point where they're showing photos of bodies and showing snippets and video sequence of the interrogations, and it was incredible. I can't. We're not allowed to talk much more about it than that, but it was just the most fascinating 3.5 hours of these, senior sergeants talking about how they go about solving crimes and showing us the step-by-step process and the interrogation tactics, and showed us the videos and showed us confessions and showed us photos and evidence, and it was really, really cool. So that was my night last night. And my night tonight, I just got back from wedding cake sampling. So how's that for two extremes? Literally just walked back in the door from sampling wedding cakes from a really cool little bakery, which is actually 3 doors down from the house. So it was a nice little stroll back.
Wow.
There you go.
That's a bit of a range. Dead bodies to wedding cakes.
Yes. So it was really cool last night. I was trying to think all day, how could we actually tie some of the stuff they spoke about at this homicide night into the podcast, and how it could be business related and educational. But it was a fundraiser, so there was that sort of element. And there's some pretty cool, just the whole interrogation tactics. He didn't really sort of go into too much about how they go about the interrogation process per se, but it was very much about building rapport and sort of sitting on the same side of the negotiation table, if you will, with the accused or the witness or the person they're interrogating. And it was really interesting to sort of see in real life how an officer actually goes about talking and communicating and getting information out of a potential suspect, or a suspect, I guess you call it.
Cool.
Very, very cool. So it's very hush-hush, and I'd love to be able to sort of tell more about it and some of the stuff, but it was really interesting. So there you go.
And despite that incredibly distracting story, I've remembered what it was I wanted to talk to you about.
Ooh, okay.
You mentioned a couple of times trade exchanges.
Ah, yes. Okay.
As an interesting way, an alternative way of addressing certain issues in your business. Is that something you could wax lyrical on for a little while?
Absolutely, not a problem at all. And actually, funnily enough, another thing that happened in the last 36 hours is I'm having chats with a couple of the daily deal sites here in Australia, like the Groupon type sites, about doing some pretty funky stuff with the MCG frames. It's AFL football season, AFL finals season at the moment, and the whole MCG carpet stuff that if people don't know about it, let's do next week's episode telling the story of how I sold the MCG, Australia's version of Yankee Stadium, and how I've resold the MCG and all that sort of stuff. But for people who know that story, it's the AFL finals right now, or about to start this weekend here in Australia. And the MCG frames obviously relate very much to football here in Australia. And talking with the Deal of the Day sites to do a special series of MCG frames, probably the last series we'll ever do, to actually sell quite a few through a Deal of the Day kind of offer. And for those of you who don't know the metrics and the numbers of these daily deal sites like Groupon and Scoopon and Spreets, and I don't know what you've got over in the Europe side of things like Groupon, but basically how they work is they're designed to give you new business. So the whole idea is, as a business owner, whether you've got some MCG frames, or you're a florist, or you're a masseuse, or a hairdresser, and it's very much aligned with sort of the service-based industries, is that you go on there and say, I'm going to offer something at half price. My normal sort of haircut's normally $100. I'm going to do it for $50, and we're going to sell a metric shit ton of these things through a daily deal site to get new business into your salon, and hopefully those people will stick and come back and pay full premium, full price premium or full tote odds with you to get the haircut every 3 months. And that's basically how the Groupon model works from an end user perspective. I think we all sort of understand that, don't we? That sort of makes sense.
Oddly enough, I think some people don't.
Okay.
I think some people go, why on earth would I do that? Why would I get involved in, basically, as some people see it, giving away my product or my service? And I think so that's a good summary and a good positioning of why you would do it.
And then from the matrix perspective then, or the money perspective, is the metrics, not the matrix, the metrics perspective is that...
I wonder there.
Yeah. Groupon, or the daily deal site, generally takes roughly about 30% of the ticket price in commission. So you don't actually have to pay to actually get listed. You don't actually sort of pay to be listed on the site as a daily deal. They just take a clip on every sale that's generated. And then the person who purchases gets a little redeem coupon that they can come to you and redeem and cash in their haircut or their massage or their lawn mowing or whatever it might be. So they take 30%. So of a haircut that, let's say, is normally $100, you do a sale at $50, so it's half price. Generally, these deal of the day things are at least 50% off, which is the reason the consumer will purchase, because it's a significant saving and it's an impulse purchase. And of that $50, the deal of the day site would take $15. That's 30% of the $50 ticket price. You're left with $35, hopefully covering your costs, so you're not actually out of pocket, but you're going to get an influx of new prospects into your business that you'll hopefully upsell, cross-sell, back-end sell, all that sort of stuff. And go from there. Because basically, if you go back to the 7 levers episode we spoke about, this is basically the first 2 parts or 3 parts of the funnel. It gets you your business, gets you your traffic, and you want to try and upsell them and cross-sell them and sell them on numerous occasions. So that's basically the metrics. And a lot of people go, okay, that makes sense. I will, A, give a discount, and B, give away 30% to get new business in the door. For them, it's just a cost of acquisition, a cost of prospect, and it all works fine. So that's sort of the daily deal side of things. And there is a correlation with trade exchanges, and we are going to get to this. But does that sort of stuff make sense? Can you see how people justify as a business owner to A, reduce their price, and B, give away 30% to get new business, because that's their cost of acquisition?
Absolutely. But it is very, very important to realise that if you don't do anything other than let that person in your door take the coupon from them and provide them with a one-off service, if you don't do anything to upsell, cross-sell, look for that repeat business, then it starts to lose its value. But then if you're not doing that anyway with the people that come in the door, your business has got problems.
Oh, exactly.
Or will have down the line, as you say about the 7 levers. And look, so that's quite an important thing to point out.
Couldn't agree more. And there's going to be some definitely. I've already thought of some ways I'm going to sort of do some creative stuff with the MCG things. And if people are interested and want to send us a tweet or a iTunes review or an email, we happily do a whole segment about the pros and cons of daily deals. I've been involved in a few now. We've done some through our finger food company that I'm involved with, and know a few other people in business who have run them. So we can definitely have a whole episode talking about the pros and cons and how to make sure you get the most out of a daily deal site. Because there's a whole lot of marketing and business pros and cons and tricks and tactics and all that sort of stuff about implementing a daily deal. And we happily go into that at some point and share my experience. At least it's not vast, but there's definitely been some experience in there. And marketing's marketing. But let's move across to trade exchanges now. Just to sort of, we'll come back later on to sort of tie it all back in together. But basically, let's talk trade exchanges, and let me explain what a trade exchange is. There's a number of them around the world. Every country has multiple or variations of them. The largest one globally is a company called Bartercard. It's actually Australian originated, and I actually did some work with them for a while, a few years back, just to be fully transparent. I've got no correlation or connection with them anymore, except I'm still a member of their trade exchange, but that's sort of by the by now. But what a trade exchange is let's go back and use this hairdresser analogy. And let's say, for example, the hairdresser wants to get some printing done. And maybe they want to get $1,000 worth of printing. They want to get some business cards and some stationery done, as an easy example. Now, obviously they can go and spend cash, but that's not. They don't want to do that. They want to actually go and trade. They want to actually go and barter that off. Now, if the hairdresser went to the local printer and said, "Hi, Mr. Printer, I want to get $1,000 worth of business cards done and printing. Can I give you $1,000 worth of haircuts in exchange for that printing?" Now, all the printers I've dealt with are fat, overweight, and bald. So I don't know why that's been the case here. They're going to go, "Look, no thanks, sweetheart. I don't want $1,000 worth of haircuts. It's not going to be valid for me. I don't really want that." So that actual exchange, that direct barter, would never actually work, would it? So what a trade exchange does is it actually sits in the middle, almost like a bank, if you will, and actually allows that transaction to happen. Because what would happen in this scenario is, let's say, for example, the hairdresser joins a trade exchange. They might get a line of credit with that trade exchange for 1,000 trade dollars. So not cash, they get 1,000 trade dollars, so to speak, in their account as an overdraft or an advance or whatever you want to call it, or a line of credit. They can then go to that printer who's also a member of the same trade exchange and say, "I have 1,000 trade dollars I want to spend with you for $1,000 worth of printing." And the printer goes, "Not a problem at all." He goes and does $1,000 worth of printing for this hairdresser and gets paid 1,000 trade dollars. The hairdresser is now $1,000 in debt to the exchange. It owes $1,000 worth of haircuts to the exchange. So anybody else who's part of that trade exchange can actually come in and get haircuts, and that'll go off their account. That printer now has 1,000 trade dollars that he can then go and spend on meals, sign writing, mechanics to fix his vehicles if he does deliveries. He might want to pay part of his phone bill in trade if he finds the right phone company who'll take a bit of trade dollars. And that's basically how the trade exchange allows people to barter stuff off. Does that sort of first level of understanding make sense so far?
Yeah, it's a good explanation. It's a good starting point.
Okay, cool. So the next question I guess to ask is, well, what's the benefit for the printer and the hairdresser to actually do this in a barter economy as opposed to in a traditional cash economy? Because normally, whether you're paying with Visa card or check or cash, it's still a cash economy. You're paying normal dollars. What's the benefit of doing this for the printer? Let's say for the printer's perspective, okay, obviously he has the option of saying to the customer or the hairdresser, "Sorry, I don't do trade, I don't do barter, go and find a printing elsewhere." And he's lost $1,000 worth of potential business. and that hairdresser might go off and find a printer somewhere else to use. So from the printer's perspective, he's given up $1,000 worth of business he wouldn't have otherwise had. So, but what's his raw cost to actually do $1,000 worth of retail, like RRP price printing? What is his real costs? He's already got staff. He's already paying the electricity. He's already got, all the overheads covered. Let's assume he's got some spare capacity. Because most businesses, if you really look at it, they've all got spare capacity. They can take on additional business right now without having an increase in overheads. They're only going to have the direct cost of doing that printing, which will be a little bit of ink and the raw paper stock. Everything else has already been covered. Even the design of the business card, if they're doing design, even the setting up of it all, that's all been covered in the labour that would otherwise go squandered if they weren't had that person operating at full capacity. So that $1,000 worth of printing, the raw costs might be, let's say, $200 in raw ink and paper to supply $1,000 worth of business cards. Probably even be a bit generous there, really, in terms of the raw direct cost. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So, from their perspective, they could actually say, yes, this hairdresser, get paid $1,000 trade dollars. So they've got $1,000 trade dollars in their account from a business they wouldn't have otherwise had that's only cost them direct cash of $200. Does that make sense? Cool. So, what do they go and do with that $1,000 now? Let's say they had a mechanic. They need to get some work done on their business vehicles. They could spend $1,000 cash, or they find another trade exchange member and get that $1,000 worth of mechanical work done using their trade dollars. So they've supplied printing to the hairdresser and been paid $1,000 trade dollars. They go and spend that $1,000 trade dollars with the mechanic. What's their raw cost? What's their cash cost to actually do that mechanical work now? What does it actually cost that printer in cash to get $1,000 worth of mechanical work?
On your model, $200.
Exactly right. So they've got an 80% discount. Their cash cost is 80% cheaper than it would have been if they had to spend $1,000 cash out of their pocket to do that mechanical work. From a hairdresser's perspective, let's look at that. They've got $1,000 worth of printing that they would have otherwise spent $1,000 cash on. Now, what does it cost them to actually do $1,000 worth of haircuts if they have spare capacity in their business? And most hairdressers, if you look at their weekly sheet, they have room for more clients. There is spare space in that hairdressing business. They're already paying the staff. They're already paying the apprentices their terrible, shitty wages that they're paying them. There's no real direct cost to do more haircuts, really, is it? You're not going to wear the scissors out more. You might have a little bit of hair dye if you're actually going to be doing bleaching and some colour stuff. But that $1,000 worth of haircuts, what do you reckon, Dom? You're a man with lots of hair. What does it cost for
You're so asking the wrong guy.
What do you reckon? $50 in raw stuff to do $1,000 worth of women's haircuts? Those things are overpriced. Let's say $50. Let's say $100.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
to get $1,000 worth of printing, it's only cost them $100 cash and some time they would have otherwise wasted in their business. Is that making sense?
Yep.
So,
I'm following along so far.
So basically, what a trade exchange does for a business is, first caveat, you must have spare capacity. If you have no spare capacity in your business, i.e. you cannot take on another client without also increasing overheads, i.e. paying more wages, expanding your premises, you've actually got spare capacity to take on additional clients, all it's costing you is basically the raw variable cost. So from a printer's perspective, they're now being able to actually buy stuff in that trade exchange at 20 cents on the dollar, because it only costs them $200 for every $1,000 of trade they actually earn, because it's additional business they wouldn't have otherwise had. So they basically, every time they spend a trade dollar, they're effectively getting an 80% discount. From a hairdresser's perspective, they're getting a 90% discount to get $1,000 to do $1,000 worth of haircuts and earn 1,000 trade dollars. It's only costing them $100 cash. So anytime they spend that $1,000 on printing, on sign writing, on cleaners, on whatever it might be, they're effectively getting a 90% discount on the dollar. Is that all making sense?
Yeah, I'm following along.
Yeah. So that's basically the whole idea of a trade exchange. And there's definitely some caveats, and we'll talk about the caveats and the assumptions to a certain extent that make this work. But from a phone system perspective, we put it back in sort of the businesses I'm involved in, for us to go out and do some service work on a client's phone system, if we've got a technician who's going to either be sitting in the office scratching his butt doing nothing, or the opportunity to go out and do $1,000 worth of service work we wouldn't have otherwise been able to do that week, it's worth us taking that $1,000 on, because our direct cost at that point is nothing if it's just labour doing service work. So then we spend that $1,000 trade on sign writing, on printer paper, on office water, on office Christmas party. We're basically getting that at a 100% discount, because at that time, at the end of that week, that technician didn't work. We've paid him his hourly wage, whether he works or not. But we can't get that $1,000 worth of work back 2 weeks later, because that time's passed. His time has been spent on unproductive stuff. From a finger food perspective, let's look at finger food. We can go and cater a party we wouldn't have otherwise got. So the whole idea is this is business we wouldn't have otherwise had, because the people are coming to us and wanting to do business with us as a finger food company is because they have trade dollars to spend at a discount. So they come to us and get $1,000 worth of finger food done. The raw cost is whatever the raw cost is. Now it's business we haven't otherwise had. We can go spend that trade dollars on cleaning chemicals, on uniforms, on car servicing, on plastic plates and plastic cutlery. So we're buying some of the core stuff we would have otherwise had to spend cash on using these trade dollars, and we get to keep that cash in the business. Because let's go back to that original example of the printer. That printer would have, if he didn't get that $1,000 worth of trade, he would have had to spend $1,000 cash to get that mechanical work done on his vehicles. But because it only costs him $200 cash to earn the $1,000 trade, he gets to keep $800 in his back pocket that he wouldn't have otherwise spent. So the whole idea of a trade exchange is it actually gets to allow you to keep cash in your business that you would have otherwise had to spend. Is that all sort of making sense?
Yep.
Cool. That is basically the mathematics of trade exchanges. Now, it can get pretty complex, but what you have to do is basically work out what is the incremental cost or the direct cost I have of supplying an additional unit of my product or service. For most businesses, you're looking at maybe the additional cost to serve one more person is only between sort of 20 and 30 sort of cents if you're a service-based business. If you're selling products, it's a different sort of scenario. But for most service-based businesses or things of that nature, there's huge margins in additional new sales, because obviously you've got huge overheads which are already covered by the cash side of your business, which should hopefully be profitable. And this trade dollars is just cream on top. It's new business taking up that excess capacity. So there's a couple of caveats, and for people who have actually tried to dabble in trade exchanges, you do find overpricing. That if you caught up the mechanic and said I've got some work and you'd normally pay $1,000 cash, he might charge you or try and charge you $2,000 trade dollars, because he's an idiot and he doesn't understand his cost of trade. He doesn't understand his margins and that sort of stuff. But you do find people inflate their prices in trade exchanges. But again, realistically, it's not ideal. It's far from ideal, and in most cases it's against the rules. So if you actually, flag them with your trade exchange, they'll actually get fined or a slap over the wrist and various things. But look, let's again use this example. If the printer's cost of trade is 20 cents on the dollar, $200 to earn $1,000, it's 20 cents on the dollar. Even if the mechanic inflated their price 3 times, so it's $1,000 cash or 3,000 trade dollars, which is completely against the rules and very unethical. But let's say he did that. What's the raw cost to the printer to earn $3,000 worth of trade? Let's see how your math is.
$600.
Yeah, so he's still ahead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's still better off paying that inflated price. Ideally, you don't want to do that, because the whole idea is to maximise your cost of trade dollar and get that 80% discount in this instance. But even overpricing can still work out in your favour if you know what your cost of trade is the term they use. What's your raw cost to earn one trade dollar? So that's sort of one thing, is you've got to be careful of overpricing. That's probably the biggest thing in terms of that scenario. The other thing is you want to make sure you're only spending trade dollars to actually offset costs that you would have otherwise incurred. If this printer goes and spends $200 cash to earn 1,000 trade dollars, that he then goes and buys a motorbike or goes on a holiday that's not tax deductible, it's really not the smartest use of his trade dollar. The whole idea is to actually use those trade dollars to actually offset your raw costs. So that's an important thing to think of. And there's a few other sort of caveats and things to think about. But for a lot of businesses who have spare capacity, a trade exchange is a really, really good way to actually help you bring in new clients. Because there's different ways to sort of upsell and cross-sell those clients in different things. And there's also the fees. The fees. Oh no, the fees. How do the fees work? A lot of people start muttering and bitching and moaning about the fees. Because what a trade exchange will do is they'll charge you cash on every transaction as a commission. So, let's say, for example, to be completely transparent, and let's say 30%. Let's say the trade exchange charges you 30% commission on transactions. So to earn and spend that $1,000, the printer has to spend $300 in commissions to the trade exchange. So they've got their $200 cost to deliver the extra printing, and they've got the $300 cost to the trade exchange for the commission to bring them new business. So it's cost them $500 to earn $1,000. So their cost of trade dollar in true sense is 50 cents on the dollar. Still pretty good though, right? You're still ahead of the game. So the math will still work, correct? It still makes sense to do this at 50 cents on the dollar. Yep. So even with 30% commissions, Visa only charge 5%, not even 5%. How dare Bartercard or any of these trade exchanges charge you 30%? They're ripping you off. Well, not really. If you know the cost of your trade dollar, which is in this instance 20 cents, or even if it's 40 cents, even if it costs you $400 to earn $1,000, and you still have that $300 trade fee. So your cost of trade dollar there is $400 plus $300, so it's $700 to earn $1,000. It's 70 cents on the dollar. You're still ahead. You're still getting a 30% discount every time you transact in the trade exchange. Is that making sense?
Yep.
And if you can, and it's all about giving you new business you wouldn't have otherwise had. Correct?
Yep.
So you're paying 30% or 30 cents on the dollar to actually get new business you didn't otherwise had, and you actually then get to go and spend the money you earn at a discount. So you're spending money at a discount. So when you spend those trade dollars, you're ahead as well. You're actually saving cash. So you spent 30 cents on the dollar, 30% to bring in new business, and when you spend it, you actually get a discount when you spend. Make sense?
Yep.
Cool. Let's go back to how we started this conversation. Daily deal sites. Every man and their dog right now is tripping over trying to get listed on a daily deal site. Anybody who has a service-related business is doing everything they can to get listed on a daily deal site. Is that fair? Like these Groupon sites and these daily deal sites are popping up day after day. You know, I know in Australia particularly, there's like every 2 weeks there's a new daily deal site popping up. Nothing different. There's absolutely no unique offering or no unique difference or differentiator. It's just the same thing. Daily deal site. Get stuff at a discount. Yay, woohoo. And then people are throwing their business at them. And business owners are throwing themselves at these daily deal sites to pay 30% commission to get new business. But they're doing it by dropping their prices by 50%. So they're dropping their prices by 50% and paying 30%. I'm going to repeat myself again. A trade exchange charges you 30%, but then allows you to spend the money that you earn at a discount because you're getting that saving. So you spend 30% to get new business and then get a discount when you spend. Daily deal sites charge you 30%, but also make you drop your prices, drop your income to do it as well. So you're dropping your income, you're halving your price and spending 30%. What sounds like a better deal? Does it make sense?
It makes sense. I see what you're saying.
Now pick it apart. Pick it apart. There's plenty of people who have different opinions on trade exchanges. That's mine. my little rant for the last half hour. But throw me some questions. Can you? What's your concerns? What's your problems?
I'm going to come in swinging on the premise first.
Bring it on.
Right? Okay. First of all, your 30% from the daily deals, is that 30% of the 50% price?
Yes.
Or is that...
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not the same as the 30% from the trade exchange then,
True.
is it?
Very true. You're still paying 30% of your revenue. You're still giving away
Yes.
30. You're giving away 30% of your revenue to get new business.
Yeah.
So just like a trade exchange.
Yeah. And the other thing, to me, looking at these two things, is that a trade exchange is a kind of a closed loop, or a closed system.
Oh, absolutely.
An eco.
Yeah.
So the people that you can deal and trade with will invariably be other tradespeople.
Correct. You can only trade with people inside the exchange. So, correct.
Yeah.
You can't just go and spend trade dollars anywhere.
Correct. Whereas the daily deal site opens you up to anybody that can basically get online or in some way address the daily deal issue.
And spend cash, exactly.
And spend cash. And thirdly, they will be spending actual cash. They will be injecting actual cash into your business if they come via the daily deal site.
True.
So I'm not saying either one is better or worse, but to me, this is what we do on this podcast. It's all about being informed. It's all about making sure that when somebody looks at something, they look at it. You know, we started way back in the numbers episode. Yeah.
Yep.
You made a great piece in the numbers episode about what numbers to look at and what to look for. And that really did embody what we're after in this podcast. It's about making sure that when somebody looks at their business or looks at a business opportunity, they're looking at it and they're looking at it in an informed manner. So for me, I'm not really picking holes so much as identifying things that you should be aware of.
Absolutely.
Just as you have by saying, oh yeah, people are slagging off trade exchanges because 30% commission, bad people, bad. And yet, if you look at it and do the math as you presented it, it's actually quite a good deal.
And just on your talk before about they're injecting cash to your business, I want to make it completely clear. And I clearly enjoy trade exchanges. They have worked for me because I know how to work them. Now, if we just go back to the hairdresser example, and let's say the hairdresser had the option of going to a daily deal site. And I'm not saying it's one or the other choice here. You should be doing both of these things in your business. Let me get that completely clear. It's not a one or the other deal. I'm not saying one's bad and the other's good. They both have their application. Just be aware of them. Hairdresser. A hairdresser is normally $100 for a haircut. We said before that their actual cost is, what were we saying, 20 cents on the dollar? So $200 to do $1,000 worth of haircuts?
Yep.
So a $100 haircut costs them $20. So they go on a daily deal site. They drop their price from $100 to $50 to be eligible to be on a daily deal site, right? They give away 30% of that $50 to the daily deal site in commission. So their raw cost to do that haircut is $20 plus $15 commission. So they've spent $35 to earn $50. So you're not getting a huge cash influx because $20 and $15 is going straight back out to actually do the haircut and pay the commission. So you're only really getting 15 cents cash influx, or $15 for every client cash influx, which it's not a huge. It is a cash influx. It's definitely that, but it's not going to be a wave of cash. People say, "Oh, look, I sold 1,000 haircuts. I'm getting $50,000 coming into my business." How good is that for a cash influx? Well, yeah, it is. But you're about to spend $15,000 in commission and $20,000 in raw cost to provide those haircuts. So you're only really actually netting out with that $15,000.
It's a number. It's revenue versus profit.
Correct. And something else. I'll get on my high horse again in a second and talk about and explain why I refer to a trade exchange as a mirror economy. I'd love to sort of talk about that. But do you have something else to say? I kind of cut you off as I always do, Dom.
No, not at all. I mean, yes, you did, but I don't care. I'll get you back. I'll edit you out. No, but you're right. The important thing there was once you've identified what the relative value is to your business for each of these systems, and hopefully we've given you some more information about each one of them from the business perspective. They are both valid ways of bringing new customers.
Correct.
One of them does bring a small influx, and it is potentially a small influx of extra direct cash into your business, but they both bring new customers in one way or another that you may or may not have had before, either by a direct Groupon-based discount or via the principle of the trade exchange that somebody else in that trade exchange appreciates. And they do have their relative value, but you have to be aware of it.
Exactly. And onto the mirror economy stuff, to talk about it really, really briefly. I don't want to go down too much down the rabbit hole, but another thing a lot of people who have had experience with trade exchanges talk about is how hard it is to spend your trade dollars. Because as you rightly pointed out, it's a closed economy. There's only going to be so many mechanics who will accept your trade dollars. There's only going to be so many florists or sign writers or it's obviously someone from almost every industry in these spaces. And it's definitely harder to try and find someone who will take your trade dollars because there's limited numbers and obviously they're going to be in more demand. But the whole idea and why I call it a mirror economy is traditionally in the cash economy, in the real world, what's harder to actually do as a business owner? Spend money or make money? What's harder?
Oh, tricky one.
Make money, right? The hard thing is making money.
Of course.
That's why we speak most of the time on this podcast is about marketing, getting new business and getting new leads. I'm not going to talk and teach people how to actually spend money because I am not great when it comes to managing money, that sort of stuff. That's not my forte. I'm great at getting in the door, not so great at managing it. That's a whole other conversation. But
no comment, Mr. Custom Sneakers.
Yeah, I got a Nike fetish. I'm sorry. So that's the normal economy. Is that it's easy to spend it, hard to make it. Easy to spend it, hard to make it. Mm-hmm. In a trade exchange, it's generally easy to make it, hard to spend it. Because, most people say, I have got too many trade dollars and I can't spend them. Because the printer is in demand. The mechanic is in demand. The florist is in demand. So it's easier to actually earn trade dollars than it is to spend it. So let's say in a real world economy, to earn and spend $1,000, it takes, hypothetically, obviously these ratios can change, 8 hours to earn $1,000. 8 hours in marketing, sales meetings, proposal preparation, follow-ups, delivery of the goods, earning the money, going down the shop and spending it. It takes 8 hours to earn $1,000, right? So of that 8 hours, let's say 6 hours is in the actual making of the money, the actual sales process, the marketing and sales process, an hour to deliver the product, to service the car, to install the phone system, and then 1 hour to actually go and spend it, to actually drive down the shop, spend $1,000 at a printing company or at lunch or on some sort of expense. So of those 8 hours, 6 hours to earn it, 1 hour to actually deliver it, 1 hour to spend it. Is that a rough, fair analogy?
Yeah, it's actually an interesting way to look at it, and I'm quite intrigued by this.
That's a normal economy. That's the cash economy.
Yep.
Let's look at the trade exchange economy, which is what I call a mirror economy. In a trade exchange, it takes 1 hour to make it. You don't have to really do a lot of marketing to get business in a trade exchange. You'll be knocking back work. People, you have in most trade exchanges, they've got brokers out there who are actually designed to help you get more business. They're actually almost an additional salesperson for you. So another reason or another way to justify that 30% commission you're paying is that not only do you actually get access to this extra economy, this second economy, you actually have an additional staff member who will actually go out and do sales for you and also do purchasing for you. That you have that resource. That's one of the reasons you pay your commission. But generally, it takes 1 hour to actually earn $1,000 trade. To deliver the actual product, the time doesn't change. It's still an hour to deliver it. No matter what actually product you're doing, the product should actually be the same. It still takes an hour or to fix a car or to do whatever, install a phone system or prepare a meal. So the delivery is the same. But it takes you 6 hours to spend it. because it's going to take you longer to actually call around different providers in the trade exchange and find someone who can do your printing. You might have to actually go and get printing done on the other side of the city, in a different state even sometimes to make it work, potentially on the other side of the country. But based on your cost of trade dollar, it's worth getting printing from another state if you're getting it at an 80% discount, isn't it? You do that in the real world. So it might take you 6 hours to actually spend it. It takes you a bit longer. The actual transaction time from starting to earn that $1,000 to spending it is still 8 hours. There's no difference. It's just where you spend the time. It's a mirror. But with a trade exchange, you're still invested the same amount of time as you have, just in a mirror way, in a different fashion, in a different order. But you're also going to be getting new business from new clients you wouldn't otherwise had. And when you spend that money, you're actually getting a huge discount. So people who start thinking, it takes me normally half an hour to spend something, never think how long it actually takes to earn that in the first place. And in a trade exchange, this is an absolute mirror. It's a mirror economy.
Okay. Interesting way to look at it.
That's just it's a way to justify it almost. Let's be, again, that word transparent it's just a way to look at it, to not get caught up as saying it's not like cash. It's not like cash, because it's not cash. It's barter. It's a trade exchange. It's a different economy. So it has to be looked at differently. And so many people just have those blinders on in business and think everything should be the same. And that's the reason that their marketing is not working, their cash flow is not working, their staff's not working, is because they're expecting it all to be exactly the same. And yes, from a foundation perspective, every business is the same. Sales is the same no matter what industry you're in. Accounting is still black and white. It's still debits and credits. But at the same time, you have to be creative to a certain extent and be willing to look at things slightly differently to make them work for your business. The foundations are the same. It's just the way you actually have to look at it with a different mirror, if you will. Okay.
So we're over the usually baseline of half an hour by a fair chunk. But I think closing this one up, you've already mentioned a few businesses as examples, but in your mind, from your opinion, having been successful with a trade exchange for your businesses, what could you give some general examples, types of businesses, just to compress that information back into one point in the podcast? Some types of businesses or some actual businesses that you think are better suited to trade exchanges, the people that will benefit the most, either an attribute of the business or a type of business or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes down to sort of some of the stuff that hopefully some of the listeners have already sort of picked up is, the higher the margin, the better. And when I say higher the margin, I mean higher the margin when you're looking at incremental costs. A business that has high fixed overheads and low incremental costs, it works extremely well for. Mechanics, hairdressers, restaurants, where there's going to be spare capacity and it's not going to really cost you too much to actually fill that spare capacity in. In a retail environment where you might have something like any retail store really, a clothing store or an electronics store, where there's not really spare capacity because if that product doesn't sell today, you can still sell it tomorrow. But in a restaurant, if that table's not full tonight, you can't have two couples sitting on that one table the following night to make up for that. Once it's gone, it's gone. So any business where you actually have spare capacity, which once it's lost, works really, really well in a trade exchange and works really, really well in a daily deal as well. Because it's all about filling up that excess capacity. So that's where it works extremely well. But again, I've seen it work phenomenally well for a number of different places. So many different industries that work. And look, for people who want to actually delve into this rabbit hole a bit more about trade exchanges, head over to PreneurMarketing.com. On PreneurMarketing.com, when you go there for the very first time, you'll have a little pop-up that allows you to actually put your name and email address in and actually download a free audio version of my very first book, which was originally published by Wiley, called How to Turn Your $1 Million Idea into a Reality. And in that, there's actually a whole chapter on trade exchanges and goes into a lot more depth, does the math, but then it goes into a lot more depth of how you can apply it and how you can actually use it to generate more cash for your business and stuff like that. Completely no cost. I got part of the book deal from my agent, was able to negotiate for me at the time, was I had the ability to get the rights back to the book after a certain amount of time. I now have the rights back to the book after Wiley published it originally, and I'm just giving it away for free. So if you want to head there, if you've been to the blog before and you haven't got a copy of the book, there's a couple of places where you can sign up with your name and email address on the site at PreneurMarketing.com, and you'll get sent to a download page where you can download an audio book, and one of the chapters is all about trade exchanges and goes into a lot more depth, because I really do believe they can work if you work it.
It's something I came across it from a very different angle quite a few years ago. And at the time, I just couldn't see how it would work. So it's been very interesting to me to listen to this from somebody who's been inside, who's used one, and who's used it successfully. And I'm a lot more positive towards it now, I have to say. I'm still not 100% convinced for me and for what I do, although I can see that if I was to put my head up above the parapet inside of a trade exchange, I might actually get a flood of inquiries.
Let's give 2 minutes about you. You would work exceptionally well in it. Because what you do is, knowing you don't have a lot of spare capacity, because I and a few other people keep you ridiculously busy. But
there is that minor detail.
If you had spare capacity, if you was just starting out and wanted to get some more exposure and build up a portfolio, it could be awesome for you, because what's your raw cost to do another hour's worth of video editing? You don't have any raw cost. There's no real direct raw cost. Your bandwidth is covered. You've already paid for your computer. It's just less time in the sun, which actually could be positive because you're not going to get cancer. But there's no real direct cost for you to earn that. So you get paid X an hour in trade dollars, and all you have to pay is the fee of 30%. You can then go and spend those trade dollars on graphic design. You can find a graphic designer to work with you who can actually do all the designs that you're going to use in your future clients' work. So you can now offer an additional service with graphic design work. So when you earn trade dollars, you can then spend those trade dollars on a graphic designer to work with all your clients. And you just subcontract that out, but you pay in barter card or trade dollars. You could then use those trade dollars for a holiday. You could go away for a holiday, for meals. You could offer people that if they buy this certain package, they also get a beautiful bottle of wine as a thank you gift when you work with them. You buy that wine on trade. Every client who works with you, every new client, gets a bottle of wine to say thank you for your business. It's going to help you increase your cash customers' retention and upsells. Offer them massage vouchers. Give your better half a massage. Get some benefits that way. There's a whole range of ways you can spend those trade dollars very, very creatively in your business. When you're going to overseas for a conference, do the accommodation on trade. And you're getting that accommodation in London on trade rather than spending cash. So it makes that holiday even more cost effective, or that business trip more cost effective. That sort of stuff.
Yeah. I'm just to wrap this up, you're absolutely right. I mean, mine is a classic example from what I understand from you and from what I've worked out for myself. My situation and those of people like me, graphic designers, etc., they're ideal ones to take into this environment, because we pay our electricity, we pay our internet connection, all the rest of that. We pay it whether we've got the work on or not. So anything that we bring in any form whatsoever to offset that is a bonus. And if we have got spare capacity, then great, because off we go, doing this barter trade exchange. And as you say, as long as there's a service inside of there that we can use it for, and as you say, you can be a little bit creative with that. But as long as there's a service in there that we can use to offset our other business needs, then it's a winner.
Exactly right. It's all about being creative, which is all PreneurCast is all about.
Indeed, sir, indeed. And on that, I'm going to cut us off. We're well over time. But this has been great. It's really opened my eyes. As I said, I've been interested in this topic since you mentioned it, because I came across it, as I said, years ago. So it's really informed me and given me some background on that, which is great. And hopefully it's helped listeners.
Absolutely. And look, if people have had experience with trade exchanges, good or bad, or want some potential advice, shoot us an email. What's the email address, Tom? I have no idea. What is the email address people can get us at?
You can reach us at PreneurCast@PreneurGroup.com.
Beautiful. Or at Preneur on Twitter, or you are
At DGoucher.
beautiful. So yeah, please, by all means, people are sending us emails and giving us great comments and Twitters and all that sort of stuff. So please keep them coming. We do really enjoy it. This is powered by ego, as I said. There's no sponsors. There's no money really being made out of this sort of stuff. It's all about our ego, or mine particularly. So please help fuel it that way. And also iTunes reviews. We do love a good iTunes review. We do love a bad we don't love a bad iTunes review. We'll take a bad iTunes review if you need to give one, but preferably iTunes reviews are great. Hopefully you've enjoyed us rambling on for this 45 minutes or 50 minutes. If you can give us just 30 seconds more of your time and jump into iTunes and give us a comment, we'd really appreciate it.
Indeed. Okay, folks, we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gocher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at www.preneurmarketing.com or drop them a line via PreneurCast@preneurgroup.com.